Garner's Modern English Usage by Brian Garner. That's Brian A. Garner, the authority on grammar, usage, and style. This is the 5th edition. So I have an earlier edition, I think I have like the 3rd or 2nd or something. And when they came out with the 5th, which was I think just last year, I grabbed it. For one thing, I really like the earlier edition, but for another, the 5th edition is the first time when he actually looks through the corpus, how words are actually used in real life, mostly on the internet, but also in other places. And so can make judgments based on that more than just sort of on feel. All right, so let's have a look. This is a hardbound book. Comes with a regular old dust jacket, although I have to say, it feels really nice. It doesn't feel like normal paper. It's got a very soft kind of velvety kind of feel. I don't know how they do that. Anyway, so the book itself, it's pretty thick. Let's see here. It's more than 1,230 pages. That was 1,237 I happen to turn to. And it is packed. Basically, it is alphabetical, and it's better if it's, let's see here, we'll do it this way. It's alphabetical, and just by terms. And then what he does is he gives sometimes it's just a very simple thing, but sometimes he goes over different variants, different styles, and how different people in different areas use it. It used to be, the earlier version was something like modern American usage, and now he's broadened out a little bit. Okay, so what's interesting here that I really like about it is, we'll get to that in a second. As I say, he goes to the corpus. So if we look at a word and there are 2 or 3 different ways to say it or spell it, he finds out how the ratio, let's say a word is spelled this way sometimes and this way another time in the US. And then he'll say, well, it's spelled this way 5 times to 1 of the other way. Or the word is used in 2 different ways, and there's some discussion and debate over over how it should be used. Well, he says, okay, well, I found that it's used this way 5 times more than this way, or something like that. Okay. So we have quite a lot of terms. And so what I flipped to in the beginning here was this key to the language change index. So the idea here is, language evolves, obviously. And so word usage changes. And, people say, well, and then we have a debate about it. Well, people use this word wrong. But then so many people start using it that way, then does it really make sense to say that it's wrong? I mean, if 100 million people, native English speakers, use a word in a certain way, you have to start thinking, well, maybe it's a variant. Maybe it's a legitimate variant. Anyway, he has this key. Okay, so we have stage 1. It's a new form. It's either some kind of innovation or something that has lasted, but only with a certain number of people. And then stage 2, it spreads somewhat. Stage 3, it becomes commonplace, even among well-educated people. So I'm thinking like, I don't know. I don't have an example off the top of my head. And then we have stage 4, where it's like, it pretty much, it gets used in lots of places, but there are still some people who hold off, and they have legitimate reasons to not use it. And then stage 5 is that pretty much it's accepted by everyone, and everyone uses it this way. So I just came up with a couple of examples. One that really bugs people is literally. So let's flip to literally. I've got a bookmark in there. So he rightly says, I don't know what you're going to get out of this, but so here's let's see, where is literally? Did I put it in the wrong place? Oh, we're on the end here. Okay. So he rightly says, look, literally does not replace figuratively. That is, some people complain that people use the word literally to mean figuratively. That is, like they'll say, well, he literally jumped out of his skin. And then someone else will say, you mean figuratively. Use the word literally to mean figuratively. But of course, it doesn't mean figuratively. No one would say he figuratively jumped out of his skin. Literally is used as an intensifier. It's trying to it's doing something, but it's not replacing the word figuratively. Okay, so he points that out. But he says, he comes up with a lot of examples of how people use it in a way that he does not approve of, or that he thinks I think his word is amateurish. To use literally in that way in a professional sense just doesn't sound right, or doesn't work quite right. However, in the end, we look in the corpus, and so he considers it language stage 3. I don't know if you can read that. And in shorthand here, he does say literally for figuratively, but he has explained that he doesn't mean that it actually replaces the word figuratively. Anyway, saying something like, we're literally toast. Okay? We're obviously not literally toast. I don't know if you can see it or if it even matters very much. But so to say we're literally toast, this is stage 3 in the language index, right? So to remind you, that was the one I said I couldn't come up with an example. Did I take out I took out the bookmark. What? Speaking of amateurish, okay. So stage 3, the form is commonplace even among well-educated people, but it's still avoided in careful usage. Of course, I didn't have to come up with an example because they have a bunch of examples here. Adopted mother for adoptive mother. Okay, minuscule for spelling it a different way. Yeah, okay, so things like that. And literally. So using literally, I think that's right. You use literally in that way. A lot of people do it. They don't even think twice about it. But then there are other people who are saying, and not a small number, who say, don't use literally that way. So it's the kind of thing, I personally, I still notice it. I do notice it when people say, we're literally toast. I notice it, of course, in my head. I don't say anything, and I wouldn't say anything. But I noticed that. Let's look at another one. So some people talk about the word hopefully. Okay, hopefully. And they say that hopefully should be used in this way. I looked hopefully at the sky. Meaning, I looked at the sky hoping that it wouldn't rain, and my doing so was in a hopeful manner. I looked hopefully at the sky, full of hope at the sky. And that what you shouldn't do is say, well, hopefully it'll rain. That they say that you shouldn't do that. Well, okay, so that is a thing that some people say, and he talks about how, in the history and with some quotes and things about how that may have been true, and it is still true for some people. But in the end, hopefully as a sentence adverb, such as, I hope it won't versus hopefully it won't, he calls it stage 4, which we'll look at in a second. And he checks the ratio, the current ratio in print, that I hope it won't, blah, 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 is used 7 times to hopefully it won't, used 1 time. Boy, that was really said badly, but hopefully you get it. It's a 7-to-1 ratio. I hope it won't is used more than hopefully it won't, for what that's worth. So using hopefully this way, hopefully it won't, blah, 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 is a stage 4. So remember, that's a little bit beyond where literally was. Stage 4, the form becomes virtually universal, but is opposed on cogent grounds by a few linguistic stalwarts, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And I think that's true too, because I think most people say, well, hopefully it won't rain, and they don't think twice about it. They don't think for a second that there are going to be people out there who are complaining about that usage. Okay. So, but what I really like is the absolute objective look at in print today, how the word is used. Now, you can make of that what you will. That doesn't mean, well, look, if it's used 7-to-1, then that means it's okay or something. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but you can interpret that data as you want, but he gives you the data, and I really appreciate that. I like that. Okay, so that's what this is. I love it. I can't say that it turns out I'm a professional writer, but I haven't found myself using this very much. I flip to it once in a while. But what I really like is just to play around with it, just to look at it, look up a few things here and there that are not actually important, but that I enjoy, just like, oh, hey, wait, what is the detail there? And, so you get into these arguments or discussions, interesting discussions with people, and they'll be like, oh, I think it's more common to say it this way. Oh, I think it's more common to say it this way. And then you can look it up here and actually see. All right, we'll leave it there. That is Garner's Modern English Usage, the 5th edition. I think it just came out in 2022.